Okay, hello everybody. My name is Masisi, and welcome to our Open Science webinar series. And once again, today we have an interesting topic. And for those who are new here, I am the project coordinator at Access to Perspectives and Africa Archive. And just a little bit of what we do at Africa Archive, we're a platform that helps African researchers increase their visibility in the global stage. And this particular topic for today for our series is going to be titled Advancing Open Science and Research Management with scienceOS. And our speaker today is Henri Deda. So just a little bit about our speaker today. Henri is the co-founder of scienceOS, a platform dedicated to empowering researchers with AI-enriched tools to streamline their workflows and advance scientific progress, driven by the belief that science is the art of finding novel solutions to problems. Henri is passionate about supporting scientists in tackling the challenges of our time. Through scienceOS, he aims to create a world where researchers are equipped to work more efficiently, collaboratively, and transparently. Henri is committed to fostering a society that values and accelerates scientific progress, and he actively engages with the global research community to refine and expand the platform's impact. We're happy to hear Henri speak today about a very interesting topic, which is AI, and I think we can all appreciate that it is very timely for the time that we're in. Henri, I'll give the stage to you.
Thank you very much for the very kind introduction. Okay, then let me jump right to it. Okay, perfect. Okay, as said, I'm Henri, and what I will do today is I will show you what you can do with scienceOS, that is the AI research agent for scientists with high standards and little time. Now, first, who is actually scienceOS? So the three founders of scienceOS are Mark. Mark is an AI and machine learning data scientist who has been working in the field of natural language processing for about 10 years. Andre is a software architect specialized in user interface and user experience. So he's responsible for making sure that the app is also intuitive to use. And he's been working in the field for close to 30 years. And my background is actually molecular biology. And then if you take a look at the three of us, you notice that no one ever spent some academic education on how to run a business. So that is what I took also then on me, just to make sure that we do have a fundamental understanding of what it means um, to operate something. Now, there's actually way more people. There is a community of about 50 to 100 scientists from all fields of science, from all levels of seniority, so master students towards people close to their retirement, from academia, from industry, from a lot of different areas of the world, and they tell us what we should develop next, but also inform us when they then play around with it, what we are building, whether it's actually solving their problems. And in addition to that, the three of us also share four core values, which drives our decision making. And that is we deeply believe in collaboration, in simplicity, agility, and having a big vision, because ultimately, as already mentioned, what we want to achieve is we just want to contribute a little bit to a world where scientists can actually solve the challenges of our time. Okay, so what can scienceOS actually do for you? So together we'll take a journey from initiating a research project to drafting text. So we're going to go figuratively from hypothesis to publication. And the four problems we'll take a look at, the four common problems is the first one, I'm starting a new R&D project and I quickly need to gain an overview about the field. In the second example, we will face the issue of that there are too many publications and we need to find the best and most relevant papers. In the third use case, we'll take a look at, or we have then acquired relevant research papers and then we want to compare the results from them and maybe also assess whether the results make sense. And then in the last step, a funding call is approaching, we still need to write a text for the grant application. But let's start with example one. So the first use case is the core feature of scienceOS, that is fast and easy access to scientific answers grounded in published research. So when you log in for the first time, this is what you will see. The app homepage with all your existing projects, your feed, the chat button. We'll get to all these things one at a time. But for now, let's just focus on our story that begins with me starting a new R&D project. So the first thing I do is I click on New Project. And the scope of my new research project is to understand better the complex role of lipids or fat molecules in dermatological research. This is loosely what I did before. So I give my new project a clear and compelling name. I call it dermatology. So far, so easy. And as I just started using scienceOS, my library is still empty. As a consequence, I get this message when I create a new project. Your library is empty, upload papers or import from Zotero to get started. However, that's actually not a real problem. As I'm new to the subject of fat molecules in dermatology, I do not have any relevant sources so far anyway. So I ignore this issue and just go with the setting, search 225 million research papers. Okay, project title and sources done. What's still keeping us from learning more about lipids? Sharing. I can also invite others to my project to collaborate and distribute tasks. But I'm not interested, at least for now, so I click on Create and we are done. We've created our first project called Dermatology. So after creating the project, I immediately am transferred to the project itself. So I land on the project homepage where all my chats and sources and gained insights will accumulate over time. So far, I haven't done anything, so there's nothing to see. And as I'm new to the field of lipids and dermatology, what I need to do is I need to get an overview. So I simply ask Science as a question, and that question is, which non-invasive methods allow for quantification of different lipid classes in the skin? So I'm looking for a technology that allows me to quantify the different lipids in my study participants without hurting them. And so the AI research agent begins to answer my questions. So what happened is the AI went through our database of more than 225 million documents, factoring in citation counts, publication dates, reference relationships, and more. And then the AI agent read relevant documents and generated an answer grounded in this published research, including little in-text citation markers, these green boxes that you see in the screenshot. And if you click on one of these citation markers, a pop-up appears. And it features the abstract, the publication date, the authors, a list to the full text PDF if it's an open access PDF, the number of citations, the journal rank, all the information that you would want to see to quickly just assess whether this particular source is really relevant to your research project. And because here we're saying this is a highly relevant source, they use mass spectrometry, which is a specific methodology in the biomedical field to measure which different types of molecules are present in a sample. So they use this and I like this technology. Therefore, I click on Add to Library, this green button in the bottom right of the source pop-up. And this saves this particular article in my scienceOS library. So hooray, now there's at least one source in my personal scienceOS library. Now scienceOS offers more than just plain text answers. For example, if I wanted to find further papers that also made use of mass spectrometry to quantify lipids in skin samples, I can also ask scienceOS for a table. And this makes it easier to quickly grasp the essence of multiple papers. So here I continue in the same chat and I just ask, create a table with further papers that made use of mass spectrometry-based quantification of skin lipids. And then I get this nice table. Or you may even ask for a diagram. So this is particularly helpful if you want to understand relationships between different pieces of information. And here I used a little trick in scienceOS. I clicked on the magic wand icon in the message bar. The magic wand icon is also available right underneath the answer. And this gives me access to some saved prompts that we at scienceOS have developed, but you can also create your own saved prompts. And one of these saved prompts is create diagram that makes sure that the diagram actually looks really nice and isn't just any diagram. And I actually think this is a really nice diagram. I really like how it communicates with me. So what I want to do is I want to save this answer and the diagram for later. And I do that by clicking on the little star icon underneath the answer. So I can also save answers to use them for later, not just articles, also answers. And finally, instead of providing me with a brief answer, scienceOS can also generate long reports. So if we select the deep research mode, it will generate a detailed report based on hundreds of sources, and this helps me get a comprehensive overview about a new field to identify key trends and findings across the field. So here I just continue in the same chat, provide a comprehensive overview about mass spectrometry-based lipid analysis in dermatology research, and then I clicked on deep research. And for the sake of the story, we're saying that within this research report, I discovered many more relevant sources and added them to my library as well. But how does all of this magic actually work? So in the beginning, I said scienceOS is an AI agent, and AI agents are actually nothing new. They are an idea from the last century, and by that, the last millennium. And the idea is simply that we do have a central piece of software that can make decisions, a decision unit. And this decision unit receives some input. It can work on the input with some tools, so it makes the decision which tools to use to work on the input and then generates an output. So what does that mean in the case of scienceOS? Well, our central decision-making unit is based on a large language model. So that's our AI agent. And it receives the input from you, from the user. What you type into the message bar is the input. And then the decision-making unit, the AI agent, decides, should I use the search tool? Should I use the PDF tool? Should I use the library tool? Should I use them one after another? Should they use them in parallel? Do I not use any tool at all? So it has access to three different tools: the search tool, the PDF tool, and the library tool. The search tool you've already seen in action. This is the tool that the AI agent can use to browse our internal database of more than 225 billion sources. The PDF tool we'll see in a couple of slides, but this one becomes active once you upload a PDF to a chat. So this is the tool that the AI agent can use to read the PDF that you uploaded to a chat. And the library tool is, of course, the tool that the AI agent can use to take a look at your library. And we'll get to that in a couple of slides as well. Now, the output that the AI agent produces is, of course, the answer you can see in the chat. Of these three tools, the search tool, the PDF tool, and the library tool, I believe it's most important to understand a little bit more about the search tool, because the PDF tool you control by deciding which PDFs you upload to a chat. The library tool you control by deciding which papers you add to your library, but the search tool that will always search in the 225 million sources. So a little bit of more information, what it can actually do, helps you to use it in or to work around its limitations. So how does the search tool work? Well, if the AI agent decides I cannot answer this question myself, I need to base it on scientific literature, it will use the search tool. And the first step, what happens in the search is, of course, that the search tool takes a look at what you're asking right now, but also the chat history, and turns all of this into a database compatible query. And we then use the database compatible query to go through our internal paper search index that contains more than 225 million publications from all fields of science. And we simply take the top 100 results by keyword frequency. But keyword frequency is, of course, not sufficient to make sure that we find the most relevant scientific papers. So we forward these 100 research papers to a complex re-ranking algorithm that itself contains a specialized AI model that just takes a look at how well does this one document actually answer the question asked. It takes a look at the publication date. New papers are slightly preferred over older papers. It takes a look at the citations count. More cited papers are slightly preferred over less cited papers. It takes a look at the journal rank. Higher prestigious journals are slightly preferred over less prestigious journals. And it takes a look at how are all these papers referencing each other. And then we just change the order of the 100 papers, take the top 15 results and forward them to the AI agent so that it can read these papers and generate an answer based on them. In most cases, it will not cite all 15 papers because it's really rare that all of them are actually required to answer your question. In most cases, it will cite about 6 to 10 research papers, but it's still very good that we forward more text to the AI agent so that it has a better understanding of the context. Okay, so now you know what the general concept is, what an AI agent is, and how we use the concept of AI agents for scienceOS. But how do you actually assess whether your literature research is truly complete and comprehensive? And with that, we are at the second example, where we'll review how to tackle the problem. There are too many publications. I need to find the best and most relevant papers. Now, the scienceOS database does not only contain these 225 million research documents, but also 2.4 billion reference data pairs. And we use these reference data pairs for two features. The first one is citation networks, knowledge graphs that show how papers are referencing each other. After each generated answer, there's this button called citation network. And if you click on it, it will, of course, generate a citation network based on the sources of the answer. And as you can see, there are three different colors, blue, green, and red. Now, the green nodes in the citation network are, of course, the same sources as in the answer, green and green. The blue nodes that you see are the papers cited by the green papers. So they are the research papers that came before the green research papers. They are the foundational works. And the red research papers are exactly the opposite. They are the research papers that are citing the green research papers. So they are the subsequent research that followed up on the research paper cited in the original answer. And this helps me make sure that I do not miss important foundational papers or where then research continued heading towards. So for example, if we take a look at this citation network, the paper Motta 1993, in the very top over here, this one has hundreds of citations and is one of the baseline papers in this field of lipids in the skin. It's like one of the most important papers because they defined a specific way how to call the lipids that are important in the skin. So every time I refer to these specific defined names for these lipids in the skin, I need to cite Motta 1993. I need to know this paper. So I want to add this to my scienceOS library. What you can also do is you can also generate the citation network of an individual paper. Just again, click on any source, and then instead of taking a look at the abstract, go to the network tab and take a look at the citation network for this particular source. And then there's also the second references-based feature, a citations analysis. So if you then continue to the citations tab, there you can then take a look at how other papers are citing this work. So whether they support it, just mention it, or even challenge it. And this helps understand the real influence of a source, how the conversation in the field is changing, and also supports evaluating the quality of a paper. Both the citation networks and the citations analysis help you identify the most relevant papers for your literature collection. But what if you do not want answers and networks and whatnot based on these 225 million research papers? So now the third example revolves around chatting with individual research papers, which is a prime use case for the PDF chat in scienceOS. So let's take a look at this. So if you want to skim a new paper with the help of the AI research agent, well, first you need to add the PDF to a chat session. So you can either drag and drop it into the chat or click on the plus button in the message bar. So by the way, this paper that you see over here, Sadowski 2017, that's the same paper I discovered at the start of the journey when I was aiming for an overview about the field. And this was an open access paper, so I could download it and now upload it to the chat. And as you can see, after the upload, it generated this nice preview of the PDF. And what it also offers to me is a summary of the uploaded document in text and slide format. Now, if you click on the button PDF summary to access the structured summary of your research paper, and this goes, of course, far beyond the abstract, but is still not reading the full paper. And similarly to the previous chat messages generated by the AI agent, the summary will also contain citation markers. And if you click on them, a PDF viewer appears because when chatting with a PDF, all the generated answers will be based on the content of the PDF. Therefore, the page citation markers will reference specific text segments and pages in the PDF file. Personally, when I start working with the full text of a new paper, what I like to do is I like to start by understanding the study design. So what I do is over here in the chat after uploading the PDF, I ask the question, write a brief description of the study design, and then I click on P2 over here, so page 2, and then it shows me this information you will find in this paragraph, and you will also find it on page 2 and on page 3. They mentioned this aspect multiple times in the paper. Of course, you are not limited to chatting with just one PDF. You can upload up to 8 PDFs per chat session, and you may use this to synthesize information from multiple papers or to compare the results from several publications. So here I uploaded a second PDF, so we now have Sadowski 2017 and Ahlström 2024. And after uploading the second PDF, I asked the AI, create a table to compare the results of both papers regarding the 12 ceramide subclasses. So ceramides are a particular type of lipids, and the 12 ceramide subclasses is actually what Motta 1993 defined, and then sort them by alphabet. And then generate this nice table where it compares the results for the 12 ceramide subclasses in column 1 and in column 2 for Ahlström 2024. Now, the most powerful aspect of scienceOS is everything I'm showing you so far happens within the same chat. What does that mean? So while you are chatting with a PDF, all the answers will be based on the content of the PDF. However, often you will come to a situation where you want to check if a result of this particular paper is in line with other sources, or where you need to assess the validity of a method in the context of this research field, or where you simply require a definition for certain terminology used in the paper. And usually, you would simply browse on databases in parallel while reading a paper until you get lost in hundreds of open tabs in your browser. And to overcome this tab chaos, simply ask scienceOS to check for other sources. This is exactly what I did over here. So the previous answer was this table comparing PDF1 and comparing with PDF2. And now I follow up with, is this in line with what other papers report? And now the AI agent is sufficiently intelligent to understand, I'm not supposed to take a look at the PDFs that you uploaded to the chat. I'm supposed to use the search tool and take a look at the 225 million sources and see whether what the PDFs say, it also says in these other sources. And it's really good that it did that because what it actually says then is, well, yeah, generally speaking, that is in line with what other papers report. However, there are some discrepancies with this paper and with that paper and with the paper over here. And this discrepancy is most likely to different types of study design, but that means that if the study design is different, you get some discrepancy, which means we haven't fully understood the phenomenon yet. And this works only because everything is happening in the same chat. So I can combine the content of the PDF that I uploaded to the chat with the 225 billion sources from the scienceOS index. So you can instruct the AI agent to combine its tools. And because that's so powerful, let's review another example for that. And with that, we're already at the last example, where I'll review how to tackle the problem. I need to draft a text based on papers I can fully trust. Now, over the course of the previous examples, in the first example, we gained an overview, then we found related papers, and then we had some PDFs that we were really interested in and compared them. Over the course of these different things, we added a handful of relevant research papers to my library. Of course, you can bypass this whole process if you already have relevant literature for drafting a text. You don't need to find the research papers that you want to base your text on in scienceOS first. You can simply upload up to 4,000 PDFs directly to your scienceOS library, which is essentially an AI reference manager. So simply go to my library and then either drag and drop PDFs into your library or click the pink plus button in the top right corner. It's a little bit difficult to see right now because it's in the shade, but it's over there. If you click on that, you can either select PDFs from your computer or import them from Zotero. I also highly recommend that you organize your sources by creating collections within your library. If you import from Zotero, we'll of course automatically create the collections already. And to create a collection, just select the research papers that should be part of it and then click on Add to Collection. And in 2 slides, you will see why. But now let's go back to our dermatology project because what we actually want to do is write a text based on papers we can trust. Now we are back on the homepage of the project dermatology. After some work we've done in the project, we can now see our previous chat called Free Scientific AI Answers over here, and we also meet the nice schematic again. That is because all the start AI answers, so all the knowledge that we gained with sciences that we developed will be shown in the project feed. But let's get not caught up with the feed for now. We wanted to draft the text based on the papers in our library. In other words, we want to modify the sources of the dermatology project. We want to change what it has access to. So I click on Add Sources in the top right corner. And in the very beginning, when I created the dermatology project, my library did not contain any source. We had this message where it said like, oh, your library is empty, you still need to upload things and so on. But now, after all the work we have done, my library contains in total 19 papers. But for my writing task, I want the AI agent to only make use of a small subset of papers from my library, so I only add the collection Dermatology, which contains only 6 papers. And the consequence is that from now on, when chatting with this project, the AI will prioritize this small set of research papers. Oops. And what I then do is I then instruct the AI um, draft the literature review section for a grant application about the relevance of lipidomics methodology development for dermatological research and product development. Or in other words, I'm trying to apply for a grant, and my research idea is that we use mass spectrometry to research lipids so that we can then develop new cosmetics products. And then it writes this nice text because as I upload PDFs to my library, every answer will again cite relevant paragraphs from my documents, and they don't actually have to be research papers. I could have also uploaded reports, protocols, or other sources to my library. But the fundamental issue here is, of course, that if I draft a text by retrieving insights only from the PDFs in my library, there's a high risk for that it will be biased because all the text will be based on papers I know and like, whether that's consciously or subconsciously. And to overcome this, I may, of course, want to ask scientists to critically review the text by consulting the 225 million papers. So let's use the AI to review myself. So again, as the AI agent has access to the 225 million papers database, and as everything is happening in the same chat, I can combine my own data, so papers from my library, with the public information with the 225 million papers. And in this example, I again use one of these saved prompts. So I again click on the magic wand icon and I select critical review. And what critical review does, it does actually 2 searches. It once takes a look at the previous answer and then performs a search to find papers that have the same line of argumentation, and then it performs a second search to find papers that have a contrary line of argumentation. And it's really good that I did that because in summary it says, yeah, generally the idea to use mass spectrometry for better understanding lipids in skin, great idea, right direction. The problem is the fundamental issue that we're facing with mass spectrometry is standardization of protocols and results. So you cannot compare what you are measuring with someone else in most cases, which means that before we can talk about developing new cosmetics products, maybe we first should solve that we have compatible results generated at different labs. So if I would have handed in my original grant application, which said like, oh, we use this fantastic piece of technology to develop new cosmetics products, someone who just has a little bit of understanding about how mass spectrometry works would have instantly said something like, no, that doesn't make sense. We still need to standardize the results, declined. So that is the issue was that when I collected the literature, I only added sources to my library which confirmed my personal view. I only selected papers that were positive examples for the technology works. And I never asked questions to also find papers that contradict my opinion. And that is very human. And it's very difficult to understand what your personal bias is, but not for the AI. For the AI, it was just clicking on this magic wand, selecting critical review, and 30 seconds later, it tells me, well, you forgot this point. And that is fascinating because it saves me so much time and makes my research better. So, in other words, uploading your own literature collection to the scienceOS library is very powerful. It can save you hours of work or even enable you to do tasks which previously were simply too time consuming, like checking your own bias. Okay, so let's quickly recap what we discussed so far. In the first example, we used the science chat and deep research to quickly gain an overview about a new research area. In the second example, we created citation networks and analyzed how a paper has been cited to find related papers. In the third example, we uploaded up to 8 PDFs to a chat and then asked questions to them and compared the results. And in the fourth example, we imported up to 4,000 PDFs to our library and then drafted text on them and critically reviewed ourselves. But when we take a look at these four things and take a step back, what you can see is that basically none of this takes place in a lonely study room. There are virtually always further people involved in these processes because research is collaborative by design, and so must be scienceOS. In the very beginning, when we created the dermatology project, the last step of the setup offered me to invite colleagues to the project. Back then, I wasn't ready for collaboration, but now I'm ready for collaboration, and I want to share access to my project with my colleague Andre. He's also part of this grant application and wants to read what I've discovered so far. So what I do is I click on share in the top right corner to invite Andre to the project dermatology. So here I can generate an invitation link and send it to Andre. And once he joins, he will appear in the list of collaborators, as you can see over here. Now, what's important to know, all the project chats remain private by default and will not be shared with others. So if you're chatting with a shared project, other people will not be automatically be able to see what you're doing. So what's the use case here? Well, project members can, of course, chat with the shared project, and when my colleague Andre also gains important insights, he can star the answer as well to add it to the project feed, like Andre did in the screenshot. Through the shared project feed, all project members can participate in the discoveries of their colleagues. Be inspired and make sure to not ask the same questions. What Andre discovered, I can even build on by starting a chat from his saved answer. So if I click on this highlighted icon over here, the branch chat icon, I can take Andre's answer and then continue asking follow-up questions in my personal chat. And if we scrolled further down the project feed, Andre would find the diagram that I created that he can then copy to use in his manuscript. So shared projects make working with documents transparent, inspiring, and collaborative. Now, to the most important question of all, what does all of this cost? Most of it is actually for free. If you want to have access to all the high computation features, then it's $8 a month. But the good news is that we believe a tool that makes you more productive should be paid for you by your employer. This means there is also a team plan that starts at 6 licenses for the price of 5 and comes with 1 invoice per year. Otherwise, the purchasing department is going to be very unhappy with you if you send them 1 invoice per researcher per month. But now, before we get to the questions, a couple of last words about the role of open science in the development of scienceOS. Now, our vision is to help contribute to a world where scientists can solve the challenges of our time. And while we cannot break copyright law and provide access to paywall papers, we can make tools and metrics and open access literature available for free to also lower the barriers of research. So our shared projects, for example, support transparent collaboration, reproducibility, and community building, all essential open science practices. And while strict data privacy controls are not an open science principle per se, it is crucial to the ethical side of openness. Open where possible, protected where necessary. So the ideas of open science guide us in our decisions, in our design decisions, and also in the continued development of scienceOS. Now it's of course up to you to decide what's the most powerful aspect of scienceOS. Is it that everything happens in the same chat? Is it that you can upload 4,000 PDFs and chat with all of them at once? Or is it that you can make literal research a team effort? Maybe it's that all of this takes place in just one single app with an intuitive user interface. Irrespective of that, we are very proud to support your research. Okay. Then I guess we get to the questions now. So I'm pretty sure that I said some very confusing things. So
Oh my God, Henry, that was such a very good and enlightening conversation. I think especially what's happening right now with AI, we have a lot of complaints about AI. So it's refreshing to hear how we can use it to actually benefit us or benefit researchers and how it can actually make our work more easy, especially when it comes to literature review, because I think it's one of the most tiresome tasks because you have to review a lot of papers and so forth. So I'm sure you can tell that the chat is pretty fired up. So I'm just going to throw a couple of questions at you and then you can answer them. And for the audience, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat or just raise your hand and we'll be able to locate you. Henry, one of the questions is on plagiarism. I think we can all agree with the introduction of AI, there's that concern. So the question is it advisable to use content from scienceOS for research? And will it be considered as plagiarism? Maybe if you could just like comment on the combination of AI and plagiarism when it comes to science research.
yeah. So first of all, um, the answers of scienceOS by default are not quoting verbatim. So they're usually paraphrasing. If you not ask scienceOS to specifically quote verbatim from the text of the source material. So it's usually paraphrasing itself automatically. Then the second thing is that first of all, I would like to take the perspective of the AI will not do anything itself. It has no interest in advancing science. That is you, the researcher, who wants to bring humanity forwards. So without your input, it doesn't do anything. So you are still in the driver's seat and decide where it should go. It's just supporting you. So it's a tool. And what do we do with tools? Well, we list them in our research papers in the methods section where we explain what we're doing. And this is increasingly what we see what publishers also want you to do. If you use AI, that's completely fine, but please make it transparent how you're using it, what you've done with it, and then add it to the methods section, or sometimes they have a separate declaration of AI usage and so on. So it depends a bit on the publisher. So you need to check what they ask from you. There is actually a document on our website that helps you do that. So in the tutorial section of our website, there's one tutorial that is called How to Declare the Use of AI Tools. And if you go there, there's a Word document that you can download, which contains some a dummy text where you can input which tool you use, and then also there's a table where you can fill in, I used it for this and that. Here's an example prompt for this, and so on. So it takes some effort from you that you need to come up with a document to show what you've done yourself. You can just download it. It also you can also use it with ChatGPT. Like you just cross out sciences and say like I use ChatGPT. That's completely fine. It's a Word document. You can use it. The second thing is that journals are advancing towards that you are supposed to provide full transcripts of your chat. And there's a feature in scienceOS where in a chat in the top right corner is a button called copy chat. And with that, you copy everything, your questions and the answers. You can paste it in a document. There's your chat transcript done. So the it's not it's not plagiarism from our perspective at least, and from increasingly all journals, if you clearly show what you've done it, how you've done it, and why you've done it. And then, of course, you still need to decide as a scientist whether you are going to continue with that piece of information or not.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Henry. I hope that answers the question on plagiarism. I'm going to continue with a few questions that we have. One is how does Science OS specifically address the challenges faced by researchers in low resource settings such as limited access to advanced tools or infrastructure?
Yeah. So multiple aspects. One thing is that quite a lot of the features are generally for free within sciences. So for example, this whole thing of asking questions and getting answers based on our internal index is for free. So you can just use that. There is an enormous amount of researchers that use that on a daily basis, not necessarily because they may have not the funding, but also because maybe they cannot even pay, because we've got actually researchers from sanctioned countries, but they can still use through a VPN and through some hacking and so on, can still use scienceOS, but can then not pay. They have no credit cards. It doesn't work for them. They still use it. The second thing is that through this collaborative setting, um, you can participate in someone else. So if you in someone else's work. So if you have, for example, one researcher that is little bit better funded and they can afford to buy a license, they can use scienceOS to their full degree, can set up a shared project, and what they do, they can document, and you can at least participate in reading what they're doing. You can be inspired by what they're doing. So there are aspects of scienceOS that do not require you to work with the app at all. You can just take a look at what other people are doing and learn from that. Um, that is the two things. Uh, the the third thing is that, of course, we try to provide this app at the most affordable price that we can offer. It's unfortunate that the technology that is required to run such an app is still very expensive today. With some hope in the future, that may change. So let's see.
Okay, thank you, Henry. I like also that you also highlighted that in your platform, there's also the free version as well. So for those who are facing troubles with funding, they could be able to access some of the work systems that you have. And another question is just going to be on research flows in diverse fields. So the question is, can you provide examples of how scienceOS has successfully integrated into research workflows in diverse fields such as life sciences, you're from life sciences, social sciences, or engineering?
Yeah. So, for example, just this week, there was a new paper published where they built a database that is a database in the field of proteins and genes. So they built a database and they published it. And for this database, they had to go through a huge amount of literature. Like we're talking about, I think in total in the end was close to 10,000 research papers that they had to screen and identify which of these papers they add to the database because they contain relevant information about the proteins that the database is about and which do not. And it worked. So it still took them some time because, of course, you still need to go through all these 10,000 papers, and that is just by nature a very time-intensive process. But it made the experience for them so much more comfortable, so much more efficient. They were really happy that they could just take this list, put it into scienceOS, go through it, and they published it this week. Another example that is not published in the sense of in a peer-reviewed journal, but published in the social sciences, so at the local university press of these researchers, is that some social scientists used scienceOS and also other large language models to see how can you use that in academic education. So you had um, some researchers from the social sciences, and they set up these shared projects and wanted to understand better what can we do in a classroom setting with this technology? What does it change for us? And they had some interesting experiences where it changed two dynamics very much. One thing was it was empowering the students to answer questions um, again, like outside of class. They could just log into their account, ask a question, and get an answer immediately, whereas otherwise they would have needed to wait till the next session. And for the teacher, it was also very interesting because they are also humans. They also forget things, and they could also go to the project and just quickly ask again, okay, if my student asks the question like this and that, which different types of feedback questions can I ask that point them into thinking in different directions? So um, I think that was very interesting to see, okay, how do we use this technology, not for research itself, but for academic education?
Okay, thank you very much, Henry. Um, I think also in your presentation, you also mentioned in the platform that there is you have a point where you could collaborate with other researchers. So I think that will also apply to the different fields that you've been mentioning and the examples. And another question is going to be on fair data principles. So the question is, how does scienceOS support open science initiatives in practice, such as enabling fair data principles or facilitating open access publishing?
Yeah. So let me just quickly go back
Okay.
one slide over here. So one aspect is that the database that we are built on, so the 225 million research papers, that is per se an open access database. So not open access in the means of that all these 225 million research papers are fully open access, but of course at least the abstracts and so on, and everyone else can work with this particular database. So the database is called Semantic Scholar. That's an NGO that is collecting this data. So all the in like if you ask a question to scienceOS, the answer, if not based on what you uploaded yourself, will always be based on information from databases that follow the ideas of the fair data. The second thing is that to fair from our perspective also belongs this aspect of open where possible, protected where necessary. So we've got these strict data privacy controls where everything is happening in the European Union to make sure that these strict data regulations of the European Union apply to what you're doing in sciences. We do not train on what you're doing, so we are not exploiting our users where we are gaining a financial advantage because you use the app. That is not what we are doing. Also, when you upload something, like for example, a manuscript to scienceOS, scienceOS is not trained on what you upload to scienceOS. In fact, it's not even made accessible by default to other users. So if you upload a document, in this moment when you upload, it's only accessible to yourself and not to someone else. If you then set up a project and within that project you invite other peoples and you make this document available in this project, yeah, at this point it becomes, of course, available to these other people, but that's under your control. So um, what we are, what our internal data is based on is open access and according to FAIR. We provide you with the means to build something that follows the FAIR principle, but also provide you with the means to keep it safe and protected where you want it to be safe and protected.
Thank you very much, Henry. I think one other question, and then we're going to move on to some of the questions that I'm seeing in the chat. As I've said, I think this is a very interactive topic, and I think a lot of people are interested in it. Another question is, what future developments or features are planned for scienceOS to further enhance its usability and impact for researchers, particularly in the global south?
So the what we just added to Science S is what you saw over here, that you can branch a new chat from over here that facilitates more collaboration. What we're working on right now is we're trying to increase the number of open access papers that we can access to, so to provide access to more full text papers. So this is something we're developing right now within scienceOS to see can we get more PDFs for you within the app already. That is, of course, something that is relevant to all researchers globally, because it can be very frustrating to find the full text of a research paper. It can take a lot of time. So we are building something in the back end that does all this manual search in this database and this database and this database for you in the background. The second thing that we are working on is more in the space of further collaboration. So right now, scienceOS has the drawback that only the person that created the project can decide which sources should be part of it. So if one person creates a project and then someone else wants to collaborate with them, um, and the collaborator wants to add some further source to the project, they need to send these files via email or whatever first to the project owner and they add them to the project. And that's just annoying. So that should be possible within the app itself. So that you as a project member can just suggest some sources to the project owner and the project owner can just accept them. And by that, you can begin to really contribute even further as a community to building a shared project and building the literature database that you all work on. So these are the two big things that we're focusing on with our more collaboration so that individual people who have access to different types of sources can bring them all together so that everyone can benefit from them. And then also the whole aspect of, well, we are trying to find more sources proactively for all the users anyways.
Mm. Okay. Thank you very much, Henry. And I think we can all agree on the importance of like collaboration, especially when we're working on projects like this. And I think platforms like this make it more easier. I think we have a few more minutes and we're going to take some questions and then stop the recording and then we can have a chat. Another question is from the chat. It says, is there any chance of seeing the AI reasoning behind the responses? So it's basically on the question of, do you see like a step-by-step process until the AI arrives at the answer?
Not yet. That's something that we still need to build in. What you can see is where it searches. So when you ask a question, it shows you whether it uses the search tool or the PDF tool or the library tool or multiple tools and so on, so that you can see. You cannot see the classical reasoning that you can see at some other AIs that we still need to build into the user interface.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much, Henry. I'd like to see if there's anybody who has their hands raised up in the chat. Maybe my team can help me locate that if I can't see before we move on to our more informal chat after the recording. Okay. I don't see anybody. And with that, Henry, I would really like to thank you for the presentation. I think this is a very timely presentation, especially in the era where artificial intelligence is progressing, and just to see how it can be applied to the science world and how we can use it to collaborate. I think it can be very useful to different researchers here. And I'm sure you can see in the chat how everybody's just active and eager to know, even asking for more training. So I think it's a very timely presentation. And with that, I would like to thank everybody who has joined us.
Later, before we start, I think there's a few more questions in the chat we can still take up.
Okay.
For the past 4 minutes.
Okay. All right, no problem.
Like the last
I think one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Henry, I think one is, the question is it possible to do this work fully in the open? That is there an option to make the project one is working on viewable or discoverable by anybody, preferably even without having to log in? Or do we need to invite every viewer manually into the platform?
As of today, you have to invite everyone manually, so you cannot turn a project. I mean, you can turn it public, so to say. You just take the link and post it, for example, on your social media, and then everyone can participate in it. If you then want to destroy the link, you just generate a new link that will automatically destroy the old invitation link. Um, the but it's not possible to like search within scienceOS, are there any discoverable projects? It would also not be possible that you can just join a project without logging in because we require you to agree to the terms and conditions when you log in, because in the terms and conditions it says things like you're not supposed to do illegal stuff with scienceOS. So it's important that you create an account, a free account, so that you agree to the terms and conditions, so that you agree to you're not going to use it for illegal purposes. but there's no way to find projects within sciences. I'll take a note of that and I'll add this to what researchers have asked for.
Okay, all right. I think, Henry, with just 1 minute, I'd like to throw in another question. I think it's on the access to the journals that are being, or the papers that are being used. So the question is from the chat as well. Is do you get access to the suggested or referenced but open access journals that are being used in the database in the system?
That I didn't fully understand yet. So
No, the audience is asking, do you get access to the suggested or referenced journals that are being cited in the system?
that you can take a look at the related research
Mm-hmm.
articles of one.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, that is you can do that through two different means. Either this one. So here you can take a look at who is citing them and whom are they citing. So for example, the paper Young 29 is citing the blue notes and is cited by the red notes. Of course, this is only a fraction of that. And the
Mm-hmm.
second thing is that here you can take a look at what other people, when they are citing Young 29, are saying about it. So this also gives you a feeling of the other papers referencing this particular paper, what it is about. We do not show like a list of related sources that are not in a direct referencing relationship with this one particular work, but that is something that you can simply ask in the chat. So you just take the DOI, for example, from an article and give it to the AI and then either in the same prompt or on the follow-up prompt, tell the AI, okay, I'm looking for papers that are similar to this one. What else should I learn more about based on this one research paper? So you can just do it in the chat, so to say. You don't need to have like a separate window or something.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I think also that speaks on the ease of the platform as well, that you can be able to access your information in the same platform. All right. Thank you very much, Henry, for our presentation today, which was very insightful, as I have said.
Very sorry,
And to the
Calypso.
audience,
I really just
yes.
want to hear the answer to the very last question that Peter can you
Okay.
ask? Sorry, keep interrupting you.
Okay. No
I was basically asking, I think, yeah, if scienceOS is a competitor or a market partner, should we say that? I don't believe in the concept of competition, but is it like a similar product such as EBSCO Host and Emerald, where they also, the publishers now tend to also provide similar services, but also to put this up front, in my own experience, I really admire the work that the scienceOS team put into GDPR compliance and responsible use and not only use but also setup of the AI system to begin with, which I think also others are aiming for. But it's just a nice and fresh product as it stands. But Henry, could you speak to maybe also the difference or your products for individual users versus institutions and how that compares to similar products on the market?
Mhm. So in comparison to things like EBSCO and so on, um, they are databases that you can search. So they do have something similar, like we do have with the 225 million sources. But of course, these databases either they are directly from a specific publisher, um, they have a bias towards the papers of this particular publisher. We are not a publisher, so we don't care about this whole thing. But to some degree, they're also progressing to have chatbots and so on in their databases. Yes, it is comparable to that you can ask a question and you get an answer based on some research papers. There is some discrepancy between which types of research papers is accessing and which not, and so on. But that is always the case, depending on which tool you use. But where it really then gets different are the other two aspects of that you can yourself build your own database within scienceOS. That is something that you cannot do in EBSCO or whatsoever. Like you cannot include your own references that you've worked on and add them to your account, so to say. But here in scienceOS, you can build your own library. And they don't have to be research papers. They can be anything, just needs to be a PDF, and you upload it to your own account. And then you build your own second system, so to say. And the third aspect is that that there are only very, very limited systems where you can work together with other people, which is, from our perspective, a problem. So if we start to all work in our own chats and just interact with an AI, then we quickly get in this area where we are reinforcing our own beliefs because we still have this a technological shortcoming with the big AI players where the AI likes to say your idea is so brilliant and it's the best on the world and so on. Um, and and you run to your own echo chambers. And that does not work in science. Like the breakthroughs in science come from having different perspectives and interacting with other people, like taking a different look on things. Like just take, for example, the discovery of the DNA structure. The people who discovered that, at least the two men, not the woman, um, were physicists, not biologists. They had a very different perspective on one, like how to solve the problem of how does DNA work. And they weren't even specifically great physicists. They were just physicists with a different perspective on a biological problem. And they were able, together with the team, to by that understand and come up with a solution for what does DNA look like. And this only works because different perspectives are coming together. If we're all in our chats, the perspectives are not coming together. So that's a really big risk that we're having here if we're sticking to our own chats. And we provide one solution to that with the shared projects where you can make transparent what you've been working on and share it with other people. We have no idea whether that is the best solution. It's just one idea we had. Maybe someone else will come up with a better way to solve that problem, but we really have to work on that we talk with each other and not just with the AI.
Thank you, Henry.
Cool.
I think just to throw
Just
in,
to add on that again, Keleto, my apologies. But Henry,
no
like
worries.
you're providing scienceOS to individuals primarily, but also institutions for all the staff at an institution. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you mentioned before that there's also an opportunity to, please correct me if that's not anymore a program you have, but another time when we discussed also through the podcast, that it's possible to have a community kind of special pricing if the community agrees to provide feedback that helps to develop the system further. Is that still an option?
Yeah, the non-profit program
Oh,
that's also on our website. So first of all, there is generally a multi-license discount that generally applies and that also institutions get and so on. But if you're a non-profit organization and you want to become of the non-profit partnership, and then you can combine, so to say, the non-profit discount and the multi-license discount to then reduce the price even further. Yeah.
nice. And that's something we also agreed previously, and it's just anyway, so we will look into this more and hopefully be able to provide that for the Africa Archive community. And then yeah, and we'll make announcements in due course on that. Thank you so much. Okay, now Calypso, final wrap up, and I'll keep quiet. And thank you so much, Henry, also up front.
All right, thank you so much, Joe. And I think I have another question in the chat. As already said, Solomon, there'll be recordings of this particular webinar and previous webinars in our website. With that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us for this particular webinar series. And Henri, thank you so much for such an insightful talk. I think some of the tips here, I'm just going to use them in my work as well. And with that, I'd like to wrap up by saying, would like to see you in our next series as well. You can look at the chat and we'll be able to share the links to our next webinars where you can be able to register. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.
Thank you very much.